How we doing?
Good. How about you?
Good. Doing well. So I thank the rookies for the last 3 days, and what do we get out of that? Well, it's really a process for us to slow things down with the entire group, right? And understand and obviously get reps there on the field. If it's plays versus air or schemes versus air, that's fine. But also the reason why. The reason why we do things, and kind of slow down and explain exactly what we're talking about when it talks to, whatever the concept may be, a pass concept, how we're blocking the perimeter, defensively, how we're running this certain scheme. And to me, it was really good because you also have time in the meetings for them to ask questions in the meetings and also get the whole process of it. So I thought it was fabulous. And it's really about refining, right? Refining your skills and fundamentals. So I thought the guys did a great job with that. The last few days, and it's really good. The one thing with, the development of Caleb, in terms of what he's gotten to do this offseason has been outstanding. Taking him from knowing really just a little bit about the scheme from that pro day at USC all the way to where he is now, and it's really good. He's been able to really refine his understanding of the scheme, and obviously we've got a lot of work to do in the summertime. My point to the rookies was simple, is that where we are right now is a place where we can't be. We got to be at a level up. We got to level up 2 spots in those 4 weeks in the preparation of being able to say the call, see it in your mind, right, and then go ahead and execute it. And that could be drawing it, in the summer. It could be actually executing it if he's got guys out there doing it with him, and then owning it. Then you got to own it. So that's the biggest thing, the biggest step we got to take with Caleb, and also with the rest of the offense and defensive guys too, because the separation in the NFL is in our preparation. Everybody says they want to be a winner, and no one wants to be a loser. Well, you got to put the time in to be a winner, and that takes focus, attention to detail, and it takes determination and dedication. So the guys are up for that. They're excited about that. We got a plan for each guy, and it's a good plan and a good process to go through the next 4 weeks to level up a couple steps. Over to questions.
About that plan. Caleb was just talking a little bit about that. So, all right, how much of that is you guys sort of giving him specific things that he should be working on through these next 4 weeks versus also just trusting the player, to get the time off, the rest, handle things how, you expect a player to during this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a good coach sets it up for his players, and we do that. We set it up for them. We give them the tools to use, and again, it's on their own time and everything, all that. But I think you give them the keys to the car, but you also show them how to drive, and that's what a good coach does.
Have you learned anything about Caleb over these last couple months or weeks that you've worked with him that you didn't know before?
He's a pretty funny guy. So I'm learning that about him. So he's got a real good sense of humor. He's really good with the guys. He's got a good way with the other teammates. So I didn't know he was going to be that good.
With Amagachi, is he still on track to be good to go for start?
Yeah, we project that. Again, we'll have to see how the rehab goes in the summer, and we project all our guys that missed some time to be back to start camp. But again, we'll see that as we go.
What did you have of his growth then, given he's been limited?
Just the mental side of it. Yeah, just the mental side of it, his retention, his ability to spit, concepts back, be it protection, blocking schemes. He's been good at that way.
What kind of thought have you given to using the preseason games, not only for Caleb, but for the entire offense, and trying to juggle, obviously, an extra game tacked in there, and how you're going to do that this year? Yeah,
that's a process that we're going through right now. I think it's something that we have to look at and talk about, which we'll be doing here in the next couple of days. I'm not going to forecast out exactly what it is right now because I haven't made any decisions yet. So I want to make sure that I visit with everybody. I'm in the process of exit meetings with all the coaches right now, and I got about half of them done. So I got to finish that up, and then I'll be able to think on that and do what's best for the Bears.
What's kind of the tug of war you go through with understanding a rookie quarterback needs some exposure, but you don't want to overexpose him, obviously?
Yeah, there's definitely that. I mean, you look at last year's reps. I mean, CJ, Bryce, Richardson, they all got between 45 and 65 reps in the preseason. So you look at those things and look at the past, look at, go deeper than that, go back a few years. So you're always looking at that, gathering the data. And like I said, we're going to do what's best for the Bears.
What's the biggest thing that Mercedes brings in his 19th season?
Leadership. Yeah, he's a tremendous leader, and he's got a great way about him, and he's got great wisdom. Great wisdom and discernment, and he helps everybody in the building, not just the players. He helps me in terms of the feel for the team and where everybody is in terms of the players. And he's been a tremendous leader since I've known him, and we're certainly excited to have him back.
At the practice you announced last week against the Bengals, having won,
It's here, by the way.
makes sense.
We didn't memorize the preseason.
You guys are sitting together. How about that? I didn't plan that.
That was fair. That was fair of you to. Yeah, you were right.
The having one practice versus two, was that just a logistical thing, or was that like a result of learning? Last year, I know you had two practices against the Colts and then ended up holding up the starters in the game.
Yeah, that was Cincinnati brought that to us, so that was really their genesis of that. And like I said, I've never done it, but Zach has done it, so he's got experience with that. And we talked about the practice and the outline of that and logistics of that, and we feel very comfortable. I talked to him yesterday about it, so we're all set. And we feel good where it is.
I know you've talked since the beginning of the offseason about how happy you were with the offensive staff you've assembled. How have you seen different coaches kind of slide into the right lanes in terms of, who's dealing with what, particularly, as it applies to Caleb? And, you've got this extra pass game coordinator now, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator. You've got the guy back from Italy, as we established last week. How would they all fit in, and is there a learning curve there?
Yeah, there's definitely a learning curve, right? Because you have new people coming together. So that relationship piece is always big, the chemistry of that. And then learning how to communicate effectively and efficiently together to get to the right answer, not necessarily your answer. So you got to make sure you're doing that well. And, in offense, you really have a few guys that are like the guys that you got offensive coordinator with Shane. He's done a fabulous job of leading that group. And then you have an offensive line coach that's high in the run game and the protections and all that. But and the addition of Thomas has been great too, because now he gets to help tie that all together with Shane. So that's been really good. And I feel great about the new additions in terms of the position coaches. I mean, Chris Beatty is unbelievable. Chad Morton's is really remarkable. Jennifer's done a wonderful job. So it's been good to see, and the chemistry's strong, and those guys are coming in, the new guys are coming in year 3, and they understand how we do things. I had a bunch of meetings with the coaches to start the off season to kind of outline the standards and making sure they understand what and how we do things here. And they bought into that, and it's been great.
The fact that Thomas has been through this a year ago with the number 1 overall pick, how does that help you?
Good. It's been great. And I've asked them all along the way how it's going in terms of our preparation and how we're doing things and what we need to do better based on the experiences that he had, last year. And that's been great to be able to have a sounding board to be able to bounce those ideas off of him.
You've talked about your plan for the players over the next 5 weeks, but what have you learned about your personal plan between work and rest and what your routine has become now in this break before camp?
Yeah, I have a hard time getting fully away from it. I'll take a few days to do that, but I like to take the mornings when it's quiet and being able to, if I'm outlining training camp, the in part of that, and or the season, which we've already done both those things, but I'll go back and look at it, and it's important that I spend time in the morning thinking about the team and the football and the players that are on our squad. So, but then the rest of the day I kind of let it go and reset the next day, but try to enjoy some golf and obviously enjoy my girls and my ladies, and so it's going to be fun.
It seems like
the Bengals practice then on fields 1 and 2 or 3 and 4.
What's that? 3 and 4.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You know why? Because of the rain plan. If it rains, you can jump right in there.
Perfect.
And it's not an issue.
Matt, with Mercedes.
I have a real question, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
You can go first.
With Rome, usually you draft a guy, a wide receiver especially, number 9 overall, that guy is expected to come in and be the focal point of the offense, or a focal point of the offense. It's a little different because of the guys you already have. How do you make sure you guys aren't going too slow with Rome, that you are able to get everything that he is able to do as a rookie?
Yeah, I don't think we're going too slow because we're giving him a lot. He's playing multiple positions, and I really think that he's going to be able to handle those concepts. And we all know the benefit of being with the two veterans, seeing those guys, understanding how they operate during the course of a week. That's going to be really good. They're going to help them through training camp, because there's wisdom there with years and experience. But I really believe that he's going to have the ability to take off because of the other players. You're not going to be able to hone in on one guy. Say we just had him and he was the number one right now, so you'd be like, wow, so they could really do some things to him defensively, but you're not going to be able to do that versus our crew.
To that end, it seems like everyone you talk to about Roman, his past or present, talks about his feel for the game and his IQ. I'm just curious how you describe what you've experienced that with him since you got to know him here in the spring.
Yeah, I just, there's some guys just have a knack to do it, right? They can see the pictures, the drawings, in the classroom, and they can apply that right to the field. And he's able to process a bunch of information at the same time, and then take it to the field. And he's really good that way. And he's, as you follow his career at Washington, University of Washington, and he's done a great job of making himself a great player, and he's going to continue to grow that way.
Matt, with Mercedes, we talked to a lot of players last year, and the biggest takeaway is about how he's kept his body at this stage for 19 seasons now. How did you see that? It's just the way he works reflect onto some of the younger players, considering how young this roster was last year.
Yeah, it is remarkable. You think about that, and there's normal human beings, and there's other people that play 17, 18, 19 years in the NFL. So not sure how to explain that. It's a lot of that's God given in terms of how God put them together, and in terms of being healthy and all that. But he works at it. He works at the nutrition part of it, the strength and conditioning, and more importantly, he works at the flexibility. I think that's where he really gains his edge, is the flexibility and balance that he has and what he works on. And he does some different things that way, and he's going to be great for our locker room.
Let's get right to some questions.
And what have you learned about Caleb over the past 6 to 8 weeks?
I think confirming a lot of the things that we had gathered during the draft process, his competitive nature, his willingness to learn, his desire to know the why on everything that's happening, so that he's not just out there robotic trying to just run a play. He's out there really learning it, really understanding it. There's a long ways to go in terms of, going from one offense to another, but not skipping any of the steps, and knowing in order to achieve greatness, he has to put in a lot of hard work, and he's really backed that up with what he's demonstrated so far in the time we've been around him.
How did you see him manage those ebbs and flows, especially when the defense would understandably win a drive, win a session? How did you see him kind of manage those expectations and bounce back?
Yeah, I think that's a key part of playing quarterback and really playing in the NFL at all the positions, knowing that, I've mentioned this before, everyone you play against is good. Defenses have great players all around. Offenses have great players all throughout the league. And so there's going to be some good times. There's going to be some bad times, and, figuring out how you react to the ups and downs in a nice, even demeanor. And the thing we preach is, let's say there's about 65 plays each game. How can you play 65 individual snaps regardless of the outcome of the previous play, so that you can stay locked in, stay focused. And so the time in the off season for us is about training our minds as well as our bodies to react the right way, no matter what the outcome of the previous play was, knowing that there's a job to do on the next play. And not to say that the game's void of emotion, because there's going to be emotions, but how do you control those emotions? How do you handle them with that open mindset, that growth mindset? And I think Caleb's really embraced that, and you don't see one particular play impact the next series. He's learned from them and moved on.
What is the relationship like? You guys are obviously getting to know each other as well, and working together. How has that communication gone and kind of building that chemistry?
Yeah, I think as far as developing relationships with anybody, the more time you're around people, the more time you get to interact face to face and get to know each other, the tighter that relationship becomes. And I think for him and I, his ability to listen and want to learn, every single day, he brings it. He walks in that quarterback meeting room and he's ready for, what's that information of the day. texting me all sorts of different times of, hey, asking the whys on different plays. And so all of those things go together. And then having a chance to talk about things outside of football, because mentioned before, he's demonstrated his ability on the football field, but now getting a chance to really know the person outside of football, things that he enjoys. And same thing for me and what my family's about. And those things I think are all areas that help us to grow closer. And then when the season starts, when there are different, ups and downs during the season, I think the closer you are with people, the more willing you are to listen and overcome hard times during the season. And so we're just building up that armor, developing that relationship, and getting ready to go for this 2024 season.
Would you say that you've thrown like the kitchen sink at him as far as everything in the offense, or kind of just more spoon-fed along?
Yeah, no physical kitchen sinks, but there's been a lot of plays. So, we've got, we've put a pretty good amount in, because a part of this in my mind and our minds as an offensive staff is to really, build some volume in the offense, knowing that to see what all of our players can handle. We have a lot of different pieces to that puzzle, so wanting to see what different skill sets are going to be able to handle different parts of our offense, and then with that goal of building that towards training camp and then into the regular season. So he's dealt with a good amount of volume right now, and we'll continue to build on that until we get into a game plan mode.
You said that you guys weren't going to hold anything back from him as far as like learning the offense. Is that typical of a rookie, like someone like Caleb being able to handle that much and not necessarily have, I guess another metaphor would be training wheels?
Sure. I think every one of those situations are so individual based. And so for us being around Caleb, seeing what he's able to handle, seeing what our other players are able to handle, with Austin and Brett and Tyson, the other quarterbacks in the room, I think really, day to day playing off, how they're feeling. Do they feel like we can move on to the next install? And for us during the off-season program, we were able to really kind of continue on the whole way through, based on those guys' ability to grasp the information.
To that end, we've seen a few first-year coordinators and first-year quarterbacks, and the lament is always the same. It's a work in progress. It's first year of the offense, and it's a 17-game season. What hope do you have, especially with the expectations for this team, what hope do you have of some semblance of hitting the ground running with a first-year offense and a first-year quarterback, and maybe not have some of the trials that most first-year offenses with new quarterbacks have?
I think for us, it's about, living in the moment, being where our feet are planted. For us, especially on offense, the 17-game season, we know that's a grind. There's a lot of different things that are going to happen throughout the course of that season, and knowing what goals and expectations might be, but having that narrow, singular focus on what the day entails. I think that allows us, and I know there's different storylines or different things that get written about the full broad picture outside the building. But for us inside the building, it's hard to visualize much more than, the next day, the next practice, the next week. And I think living in that mindset really will help us, armor up for the different ebbs and flows that have happened in the past with those. And not to say that we're not aware of them. You study around the league, you see different things that happen. And for us, like I said, like every season, every team's different, every situation's different. So I can't predict the future with that. I know we can work hard and work to put our best product on the field as soon as possible.
But have you seen I know it's early, but have you seen indications, even in this rudimentary stage, that you can be more like the Texans were? They're the cop for this team, that you can be more like them than some of the other teams. Have you seen at least indications that what you have, you can be that or be close to that?
I think we can be the best version of the 2024 Bears. And so, comparisons to different teams and different situations, to me, those aren't what we're looking at in terms of saying those are apples to apples. Those are different scenarios. There's different pieces of each scenario that we can pull from. But for us, we're just trying to be the best version of ourselves. And we feel like we have good pieces around, our offensive structure right now. And guys are bought in. The personalities are gelling. The people are great. And so with that, the results will come. So we'll stick with the process. We'll stick with our daily improvement and that daily grind, and then let the results happen.
Along the lines of Mark's question, where do you expect Caleb to be once training camp does begin and it gets faster pace? He's had the 5 weeks to build up for this. Where do you want to see him at that point?
I think as he's done the whole time through, just that continue of the ownership of the scheme, of the operation. We've talked a lot about, what the offseason entails over this next 4-week stretch that we have before we report back for rookies with training camp there. And so there is expectation there because that's studying, that's putting in the work, even though it's the downtime and, on that relentless pursuit of getting the edge and finding the edge. And for him, finding that edge going into training camp, being better than he was when he left here today without the benefit of practices, will be so much focused on the studying, the watching tape, and then throwing and working on his fundamentals.
Shane, I'm curious about the structure of your staff. Having a passing game coordinator, run game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and so on and so forth. Is that something that you're used to from your previous stops of working with?
Yeah, the way we're set up has been pretty similar to the last few stops, whether it was LA or in Seattle, and was able to, when they got on board here to build it under a similar frame as that.
So in your experience, I guess what are the keys to making sure that kind of you're all on the same page, that Caleb knows who to go to if he's got this or that, and that the messaging's not changing?
Yeah, I think that starts with the communication amongst ourselves within the staff, whether it's with Thomas Brown or Kerry Joseph, how we're working there with Robbie Picasso or Ryan Griffin, the different guys that are going to be, around the quarterback. But knowing that there's still, a voice that's coming from me that everyone's going to echo, and they've done such a great job of being in sync, knowing that, who has different elements of the offense, but then also, making sure that, we'll have great discussions during staff meetings. We'll have great discussions as we're watching film. I would hope that not everybody agrees with each other every single second of a meeting, because that would mean everyone's just saying yes to say yes. So we'll have good, tough conversations, with the goal being, what's right for our offense this year. And when we go and break those meetings as a staff and then go join the players, we're all on the one unified front right there and presenting the same message to all of our players.
You talked about the expectations for Caleb over the next 4 weeks. What do you want him to work on? What do you want him to get better at? What are the reports, Shane?
Yeah, I think for him it's about continuing to own the system, the operation. With so many different things, you're new to a system, and whether it's the new coaches, new rookies, new free agents that have come in the door, the players that have been here in the past. There's a lot of similarities in so many different offensive systems, but they're not all exactly the same. So the ownership of what every word means, with the goal being when we come to training camp and I say a certain term that clicks in right now in Caleb's brain, knows exactly what we're talking about. We're on the same page, because the further goal is game day, when everything's happening, and it might be just a simple reminder in the headset. It might be something at halftime. Like, those things all happen so quickly. Like, that brevity code that we train ourselves with and getting on the same page on what certain terms are going to mean, that's a really important part of the off season. So then now when he comes in to start training camp, he's not thinking about any of those. Those are second nature, and he's reacting the right way when he hears a certain message there.
Was the head start that he got just working on some of the fundamental concepts, was that noticeable when he got here with the full squad?
Yeah, I think for us, when you go back to the volume or the way we were able to start as an offense with a whole new group right there, and with the way the draft picks are set up, where the vets have already been going for a couple weeks, then the rookies join it. It allowed us to not have to take a step back to total square one, where what we call going back to the different verbiage. He was able to know, hey, this is what we call certain routes, so you're not having to reteach those in the meeting. You're able to get into the full concepts, get into the reads, get into the progressions there, and just allow you to continue where the offense was rather than having to restart the whole thing.
Shane Waldron told us about Rome's ability to.
Rome's got a couple of really talented veterans that he can lean on to help him. But who do you see as somebody who could really mentor Caleb, possibly from a player standpoint, not necessarily from a coach standpoint?
Yeah, I think within the quarterback room, I think with Tyson and Brett, those guys have been unbelievable. They're they have that task, like different quarterbacks that are in different rooms of working on their own game, but then also knowing that it's their job to help and push the starter there, and they've been unbelievable with that, helping them along the way. And I think we have a different group of veterans at almost every position that have really embraced all the young players that have come aboard, because they know that we're all in this thing together. We're all working to build to our first game there. And so for them, like whether it's been Keenan or DJ, Cole, Gerald, Darnell, all these guys have really embraced that thought of let's lift the rookies up. Let's set them up for success down the road, because that's going to in turn help all of us, rather than the thought of let's keep the rookies on the side right there and do our own thing. So we've embraced it. I think the culture that Coach Eberflus has developed here within the building has really made that seamless, and so all the players feel that we're creating a team right here. There's not a different groups or different factions within the building.
Flus told us about Rome's ability to process and take what he learns and put it on the field. As a play caller, what does that do for you confidence-wise in terms of what he can absorb, what you can bring for him in this offense, and what's your excitement level to kind of get him incorporated?
I think any receiver that has that value of being able to play multiple spots, line up in different alignments, run a varied route tree, I think is a bonus for an offense. I think it allows less tips and tells for a defense, and I feel like with us, with Rome and DJ, Keenan, Gerald, Cole, we got a different group of guys that can all be versatile in what they're asked to do. And so the great thing about Rome going from a draft process to on the field now is seeing that whether it was him talking about plays or whatever it was in the different formal meetings and pro days, all those things, and then that comes to life when he gets into a new system and he's able to pick up an offense right away, really understand all three of the receiver spots right away, so he's not sitting there locked into one thing. He's really picking this offense up as a conceptual learner, which I think only helps him for down the road in the regular season when you start moving guys around.
Shane, kind of along those lines, what's your philosophy of like letting a guy make mistakes, letting whatever give him some picks where he's going to learn from it, versus trying to get things as perfect as possible, as quick as possible?
Yeah, I think the goal is perfection in everything we're striving to do, but we know that there's that's nearly impossible in this game, and I think to live or to play with that, the fear of making a mistake is the wrong way for us to look at it. And so, I love in 7-on-7, which we know, hey, there's no defensive line, there's no threat of a run. There's a lot of things that aren't, totally realistic to the actual game, but it's a great chance for quarterbacks to see what windows they can fit throws into. It's a great chance to time things up with their feet, see different voids in a clean picture. And, with the final, goal of that being, okay, let's bank these reps, what works, what doesn't work, then you put the defensive line and the offensive line in the mix. All right, so making those mistakes in 7-on-7, okay, now I can learn from them. We get to our team setting there, and then, like I said, mistakes are going to happen, so when they do happen, we're on to the next one. All right, learn from it, grow from it, move on, and I think that's the way Caleb approaches the game, and I think that's the way we want to approach it with all 11 guys on the field every single snap.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.